اهلا دكتور احمد الضيف، ازيك يا دكتور؟ عامل ايه؟
الحمد لله تمام.
طبعا عايزه اقول لك الكونفرنس احنا سترينث بيزد سكولينج، والايديا نفسها كلها على التركيز على ما هو حلو على الاولاد. وعشان اطلع ما هو حلو على الاولاد سواء بقى نيرسري ستودنتس، elementary ميدل سكول، هاي سكول، هاير education، كل ده لازم المعلم او اللي هيكون في دائره التعليم بتاعه الطالب العلم يكون عنده يوفر البيئه الامنه، البيئه الجميله اللي تخلي الانسان ده المتعلم يفلورش. فانا عارفه ان انت طبعا هاير education وبروفيسور قد الدنيا في كال بول يونيفرسيتي، يعني اعلى ديجري عندنا في الكونفرنس يعني ف... فما شاء الله يعني انت واصل جامد جدا. فانت هتقدم لنا النهارده بقى فكره ازاي بتعمل حاجات ليها دعوه بالجيميفيكيشن عشان يكون في انجيجمنت مع الستودنت او كده. فانا هسيبك تشرح لنا بقى كل حاجه. الاول التايتل عندك Insights of Lean Gamification في الهاير education، فيعني ايه لين ويعني ايه جيميفيكيشن ويلا
طيب
نبتدي من هنا.
قبل ما اعمل شير سكرين، ده طبعا بشكرك على الدعوه الكريمه، ولو الدنيا بالشهادات ما كانش حد غلب يعني، فحتى فالدنيا يعني مش زي ما انت مصوراها قوي. وانا مش على حاجه ولا حاجه يعني، بس ولسيها يعني بضاعه قليله، لكن اسعد واشرف ان احنا نشاركها مع كل من يهتم يعني ان شاء الله. طيب let me share my screen and then we'll go from there ان شاء الله. طيب there we go. فالتايتل Insights on Lean Gamification for Higher Education. فأنا بدرس Production Systems و Operation Management و Supply Chain Management. فأنا يعني لست ذو خلفية education wise أو يعني pedagogical، بس coming from Cal Poly. The main motto at Cal Poly, and this is basically the main criteria for how even professors are being evaluated, is what we call learn by doing. And whatever you are teaching, pure theory or pure practical stuff, you have to get the students really to learn by doing. This was actually a challenge when I joined Cal Poly 8 years ago. How can I really get production system theory and supply chain management and all these kind of concepts? How can we really get it into a learn by doing? فكان المفتاح الحل هو the gamification approach, and this is why I will spend some time في the presentation speaking a little bit about what's gamification, and again with a very big clear disclaimer that I'm not an educator by يعني degree, but I got into this really to know how to approach the gamification approach. How can you really get students to learn and to be empowered, not by speaking to them or onto them or pouring basically information into their minds and brains, rather than basically trying to get them engaged and involved in the learning process itself. For a quick outline of what I'd like to share with you guys today, I'll speak a little bit about the concept of gamification as we just discussed. What is lean manufacturing and what's lean education, and why there is a real case to gamify that part of knowledge. And then a little bit, and again I can take my professor hat off easily يعني, for a little bit background on the empirical study that I did to outline the whole approach, what was the assessment tool that I used, and quickly the results. And again, I'll avoid being very technical because not everybody's interested in that, but definitely there will be a lot of interesting results and discussion that we can share together. And I'll maybe finish up with one slide on what I'm currently doing along the same line, but not in lean systems, rather than in another domain called supply chain management, and using the same game approach, but not the one that I used in this case. So maybe this will entice your interest, and we can discuss it later on more. Gamification in general, and as the name entitles, it's the use of game design elements. And how can you look into the concept of games, والتسابق والتنافس, and pick some of these elements to migrate it into and take it into another domain that's by default not a game context, right? And why are we doing this? انه يعني اثبت this هذا التسابق والتنافس اثبت انه هو really it clicks with the students on the emotional level, right? This concept of failure and success and perception of ease and complexity. All these things touch on their emotional or affective domain. Also, it definitely speaks to their cognitive processing capabilities. The rules and the guidelines and the do and the don't do, all these things speak to that cognitive element. And definitely, and as I'm going to show you guys in my results, the social element is definitely very, very clear, and in many cases, actually the dominant element in this whole gamification approach, how they interact together on a cooperative level and on a competitive level, both of them actually. Quick sharing of previous results from University of Denver, that the potential of using simulation games basically increase and improve the results of whatever you are teaching and whatever you're trying really to pass on to your students, whether you are looking into the retention rate or the factual knowledge understanding or the skill-based knowledge, whatever you are actually trying to pass on to students. This is an approach that will amplify whatever results you are trying to look at. And again, I'm not an education professor, but I had to get into this and understand the underpinning pedagogical approach, يعني الأرضية التعليمية for this whole gamification approach. And I found that actually it's aligning and rhyming with a lot of the very contemporary and classical education theories. For example, the constructivist theory that tells you basically that students actually learn what they construct themselves, right? It's not what you are trying to teach them, but what they develop by themselves is what actually remains with them. And games is by definition getting them to play a game or compete along a specific dimension. And they do it, they play it, they basically reflect on it. So they develop and construct their own knowledge. It aligns with what we call the situated learning approach, right? Where basically you create a community of alike students or students aiming for the same objective. And together they basically teach one another, co-teach and co-learn in this kind of a situated learning setup. And games by definition, because they are games, they get multiple individuals, multiple students to compete and play together. Project or problem-based learning, PBL, and this is in engineering basically is a big thing for us, where you try really to get the students to learn through this thinking process, right? Through this kind of methodology. Where they try to understand the problem and create some ideas, and with this kind of engagement with the problem and getting stuck in trying to get a solution, they start to learn, right? And they apply it, and they go again for either the next level of the problem or the solution didn't work out, so they have to revisit the whole thing. So this cycle, methodological cycle approach of PBL, again, games are all about that. Here's the problem, guys. Come on, I'm actually challenging you to compete against one another and see which team will basically get the solution down. And last but not least, of course, referring to the very popular Bloom's taxonomy and trying to go from the passive learning to the active learning. And we know that the highest level of this taxonomy is trying to get them to do things, right? Synthesis things. And games is a great setup for that, right? That they do it, they play it, they analyze it, they fail or succeed, and based on that, they basically engage. So the point of this slide is to tell you that when we speak about gamification in education, it doesn't need really a showcase. It rhymes with them and it aligns with them. The challenge though, and this is what I'm trying really to get into, is how can you design these games in this kind of education setup, right? And this is where the flow principle comes to the picture, right? And again, coming from a very typical engineering background where we believe in models, we believe in differential equations. I remember my PhD supervisor told me, Ahmed, come on, life is not a differential equation. I'm very model oriented. So here's the stuff, let's do it. Let's get the, no, you have actually to be smarter than that as an educator, especially at that technical level. And the design what we call the flow channel of games, right? You try to balance between, and it's a very delicate balance between the level of challenge that you will expose your students to, and at the same time realizing what kind of skills do they have at that stage and they are developing over the course of the whole semester, for example, right? And if you do a good job, you would get the students to flow into this game environment. And if you miss the mark, you're either gonna get them to dip into an anxiety zone where things are more challenging than what they can handle, and they're gonna be. And I have to admit, at the beginning of this whole approach, I saw some of my students. They are lost. They are messing up. They get frustrated sometimes. Or if you actually miss the other side of the mark, you can be very boring, right? And the students will just basically go through the process without really engaging fully with it, right? Full-hearted, as they say. So how can you, as an educator, develop and craft that flow channel? Right? You're the one who knows the curriculum that you are trying to pass on, and what kind of skills have been developed over the period of time, whether it's a semester or a month or whatever, and how can you design and tweak the game and add elements into it, or take off some elements and postpone others so that they can align with this kind of flow. So basically, this is kind of the background regarding gamification in general. And how can you adapt and adopt, as they say, to your own context and to your own field. Specifically, I'm interested in what we call simulation games, right? There are a lot of different types of games, right? But simulation games are the most popular games. Even if we have computer scientists among us, they will definitely click with that in terms of the online gaming and big business, big money. But this is not what I'm in at all. I'm looking into basically the other category of the simulation games, which is the non-computer based games. And again, I'm not putting down simulation games. I do use that in other courses sometimes. But when it comes to manufacturing systems, right, I believe more that I would like the students really to feel the manufacturing environment and the production challenges and stress. And one of the best things that a gamification approach can do is to get students to play a role and engage and be a part, can be a worker, a supervisor. And I can see, for example, over time, how students in the fourth game, they start to say, no, I don't want to be a supervisor anymore, because they realized how stressful that role. I'd like to be that worker at the end of the line or at the beginning of the line, for example. I don't want to be a quality control technician. You guys come back on me on that. So it's interesting how basically you get them to understand and realize that that it's beyond just looking into the flow chart or the information. There is a physical engagement in that. So this is basically what I'll be focusing on. This type of basically gamification. And again, there are a lot of other forms, but it's beyond at least of what I know. Now let's speak about lean gamification. So this whole gamification background, I tried to import it into the domain of manufacturing systems, and specifically what we call lean manufacturing systems. These are the very successful Japanese mode of production created by Toyota, TPS, Toyota Production System. And it's kind of the benchmark when it comes to assembly in general and production. I worked for Chrysler for some time, by the way, Detroit, and even in Chrysler Big Three, Toyota was always the benchmark, right? So when we teach production systems, we usually get students to look into, for example, the typical mass production approach, and then we tell them that this can be better done and better tweaked with the Japanese flavor of it, and we call this lean manufacturing, right? So what I'm sharing with you guys today is a lean gamification. How can I use games in teaching these types of production systems? And this is definitely not a new thing. I didn't come up with that. Using games to teach this it is something that's actually been going on in the industry for a long time. In trainings, in consulting setups, certification programs. And we have very famous classical examples that are very good to this kind of setup, right? Like paper planes and dice games. And whoever basically have any background in this will definitely relate to that. However, the challenge was for me is how, and I'm coming also from this kind of practical background. I do a lot of consultation. I'm certified to certify a lot of people on these things, so I know the deal, and I can easily see that this is definitely not what you can get the students to take off the bat or directly. Basically, there should be some kind of an adjustment. Why? Because at that very early undergraduate level, students lack that practical background. So when you speak about, for example, the quality production challenge, They don't know that. Right? Anybody coming from the industry, they know that there is kind of a competing objectives here and there. But for students who just got 1 year above their high school and they're trying to understand what's manufacturing, a lot of these classical games are actually not that relevant to them. And this basically got me to think about the flow diagram again and the anxiety that we're speaking about. And I said, well, let me adopt and adapt basically some of these games and adapt it to our current context. I actually went out and tried to grab different games from different consulting firms and industry practitioners. And I started to adapt it a little bit to the context of our undergraduate program. And they said, well, I did the first part of the job. Let me see how good that job was done. And I started to look into an assessment approach. So, okay, this is gamification. It's a proven approach. This is lean manufacturing. This is how we can get some of these games at that level of undergraduate. Now, let's see, did we do a good job or not? And this is a big thing, right? In education, you guys know better than me that assessing the efficiency and efficacy of teaching and learning is not like what we do in manufacturing. I can assess the productivity by looking into the cycle time. I can assess the quality by looking into the tolerance and specification conforming, and it's easy. But when it comes to students, how can you really assess their the success of what you did? So I looked into multiple tools, and I again was inspired by this ARCS assessment approach. It's not new at all. You can see it's since the 80s, but a lot of research have been supporting this. It's basically ARCS. The abbreviation stands for assessing the engagement of the students through their attention, the relevance level, confidence, and satisfaction. And again, I think these 4 buzzwords are very interesting to educators, right? If I can tell you that, I can tell you how attentive your students were, how the material was relevant to them, right? Did they feel confident they can go through it or not, and whether they were satisfied at the end of the process or not. So I like that. This is basically the attention, the definition of each one of them. Attention refers to the learner's response, right, to the perceived instructional stimuli. From the get-go, are they really with you, or they shut down? Remember, we are actually teaching a generation that on average, they check their phone every 8 minutes. So poor educator, if you're teaching a 40 minutes class or a 50 minutes class, you get basically to grab their attention at least 5-6 times, or there is a fight inside their minds between who will actually win, is it you or the cyberspace and the virtual world that they enjoy more, right? So attention is a great thing, right? Relevance also, and this is where basically my whole story started, right? How relevant whatever I'm teaching to these basically young engineers who are still 18, 19 years old, and they would like really to understand manufacturing systems, right? Should I just dump into them a classical game that speaks to people who have been in the profession for some time, or should we really adopt it to be relevant to them, right? Confidence, the positive, it's very important, by the way. This is extreme, especially at that young age. And again, keeping in mind this kind of flow, right? What's the positive expectation of them succeeding or failing, right? And this is big thing in gamification design. And then at the end, definitely how much they are satisfied that in terms of we learned that and we can do it. Can we really practice that or not? So I took that model. Again, it's not me. And I said, well, this will be actually the model that I will use to just assess the engagement level, the emotional level of the story. And I actually added on top of that a couple of approaches or a couple of questions. I mean, you're going to see that I'm actually going to capture this through survey to also tap into the cognitive element and also the social element. So I added 2 elements in addition to this very well known approach to assess the engagement or the emotional element. This is the survey basically that I used, and again, I adapt and adopt, or adopt and adapt from a previous research. How can you capture these 4 elements of the ARCS, the attention, the relevance, the confidence, through some questions with the students before the game and after the game, along a period of time, and again over a Likert scale of 1 to 9, 1 to 5, whatever how granular you would like to dig deep and be boring to the students at the end. And I add, and these are actually my cognitive area, basically experience assessment. I added these 2 questions to my students about how they feel about the game after we were done. How much effort did they invest to learn the content, and how easy or difficult was it to really learn the content. So then there are 2 different things, by the way. The effort initially, and maybe when you spend the effort, it was very easy, or it still was challenging. And also I added a couple of 5 or 6 questions to capture this cooperative and competitive interaction modes that can tell me about the social element, right? So that I can have the emotional element, the cognitive element, and the social element, the 3 basically domains of typical successful education approach. This is the study I would like to share with you guys. Again, I went through 4 classes, graduate and undergraduate. By the way, I had 1 class graduate, so to compare and contrast. They maybe have a little bit more experience, but not all of them are coming from industry. But at the end, basically, I had a pool of 120 students over a full academic year. These are the names of the games that I used for those for the folks out there who are in this domain or field. They will at least know some of that. If not, they are just some games, and they are trying to capture some specific lean manufacturing tools, right? So that we have a bunch of tools that can help any engineer to improve the production line. These are the tools. So instead of teaching the tool itself, and this is the whole gamification approach, by the way. Maybe I didn't speak about that. Let me quickly speak about that. So you are trying to get the students by the end of the semester understanding that we can improve the operation of a process, right? And drive it toward what we call operational excellence by, for example, making the process well balanced. How can we do this? First, understand what's a balanced process, and this is the tool for it. You can improve it by enhancing the quality. What do we mean by quality? And here are the tools that you can use it for that, right? You can basically try to understand the flow of the different processes and their times. How can we do that? What is that? And how can we do it? Using value stream mapping, for example. So concepts, tools, concepts, tools, concepts, tools. And what I did was quickly highlighting the concept, I didn't dig really deep into it, and then grabbing the students into these games and asking them to run a real manufacturing, small simulation manufacturing line, right? I have multiple of them. So I split the students into 4 or 5 teams and said, okay, which team will actually give me higher productivity? Which team will actually produce better parts, right? And they start to compete, and we go in multiple rounds, and you can see the competition and the competitive spirit basically rising up at the end of the class. And then the lines are designed to be extremely bad and messed up at the beginning, so they get frustrated. And then I teach them the golden concept of we never blame people, we blame the systems, right? Because bad systems can defeat good people. And then we started to reflect on the system. So how can we improve? Why did we fail? Well, we have a problem here. We have a bottleneck here. We have a bad material there. So how can we improve? Let's do this. Let's use the tool that we just discussed to improve this aspect. And then we go to another round. Wow, it's getting better. What else can we do? And maybe we grab a previous tool that we started 2 weeks ago, and we add it on to our mix, and the lines start to get better and better and better, whether it's a line, production line, sometimes we use a healthcare application or whatever. And by the end, it's their students and it's their reflections and it's their experience that got them to realize that, wow, really bad systems can defeat good people. And if we can improve it, then we can actually do a better job. So what you guys see on this slide are a bunch of these tools and a bunch of these concepts that we actually played with the students, right? Again, I published that a long time ago in the International Journal of Lean and Six Sigma. So it was and still now very well received by the Lean community and the education community. These are some pictures of the games, and I got the consent of my students to show that. And these are basically a quick overview of the results, right? You can see that, again, the higher the number, the better on the Likert scale. So you can see that students basically, these games in general, improve their attention, their relevance. You can see the confidence was still a little bit shaky there, right? That the satisfaction in general was good, but you can see the anxiety of, am I going to succeed or fail the team? It's interesting. And if you add this whole emotional element, the ARCS, remember this is just the emotional element, to the cognitive and the social, you can see unexpected at this very energetic segment of our society, The social element is always shooting high. The motivation or the emotional element is also good, and the cognitive is still halfway through, right? And you can see that we need some work on that. The games itself required, and I'm still working on this continuous improvement. But they were revealing results. Again, this is just a quick show. I did also the same analysis per game to see which of the games, because this can give you a better insight. Which of the, am I running out of time, Hanan, or am I
No,
good?
you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Yes.
I tried to really see which games actually led to better engagement, were more challenging. So this is kind of a comparative analysis between the different games. Don't worry about the names. These are the games that are actually passing on specific tools and concepts, as we discussed. It's a manufacturing class, so sorry for the jargon and or the technical terms. And basically, I'm interested more to really share with you some of the highlights and the insights. It's an insights presentation, right? So I'll take you through these bullets, and maybe this is what would be relevant to you guys, and you can take it and reflect on it. So the first insight that we can learn is what I experienced in terms of how powerful when you align the learning cycle with basically the gamification approach. So students usually need to be motivated, right? And then you engage them mentally through this cognitive approach. And then the game will actually boost the social setup that you have. Not following that can actually get people to not really get the best out of these games, right? Also, another important element that I learned was related to how the game components, the game elements itself, the design of the game is extremely important in terms of engaging students, right? So the layout, the material, the colors of the material, the design of the steps, how you're going to split students, how many rounds, right? These things are, don't just say, okay, I know, or I'm a good speaker and I can change my voice tone up and down and yalla, let's go. There are people that are, mashallah, blessed with that. You can, and you get to have this self-confidence to jump into anything, and I'm going to get it happen. You're going to get through it, right? But believe me, it's not enough, right? And it's very important for the educator to spend some time and try to design and reflect into these design elements and do a good job regarding that. And I don't want to give a lot of technical examples. I can give a lot of examples of, for example, when we started to speak about the bottleneck issue before speaking about the concepts of cycle time, and you started to get this game earlier in the lineup before that. But in general, the design is very important. This is again part of why I was actually motivated to hold this thing. The relevance element, and you can see across the whole questionnaires, there was always the least in terms of the four motivation questions, right? Students at this early stage are always in doubt, and this can be creating some anxiety and frustration. What the heck is going on? why am I actually learning that? And basically, why is this important for me? Why is this? So this relevance approach is very, very important. Sometimes we take students for granted, and it's a very risky thing to do. And at least at the higher education level, yes, they are mature, of course, students than, for example, elementary school. But still, they are students, still their life exposure is limited, and the relevance element is very important in the game. And you can see that how their eyes actually get brighter when you actually speak their lingo or relate to something that they know of, right? And then take this all the way to the complicated setup that you'd like to actually get them through. So the relevance is very important. We have to admit our job as educators always is bumpy when it comes to cognitive element. If we're going to play, it's very exciting. Let's get to the games, guys. Everybody's happy, and then you start to speak about the different mechanics of the game. You start to see, okay, no, can you repeat that? So the cognitive element of any game approach is the most challenging one. The results actually highlight that, and I experienced myself, and this is why, back again, you need to really balance between the importance of challenging their minds, and this is, at the end of the day, an engineering program. They need to think, They need to synthesize. They need to do a lot of these things. But however, you have also to understand that if you push it that much, they're going to cut off, right? And the problem with the games is it's a group thing. So there will be a lot of the free riders. So, and you think that everybody learned, but actually out of the 7 partners in that game, there were only 2 or 3 who were really driving, and the other basically were just falling behind, and you missed them. And it's unfair. And this is not itqan, right? You have, you're going to get through it. But so the cognitive element is very important, right? There are definitely very interesting stories that I have and about the social processing. It's always the best thing in the whole thing, right? The students love to cooperate with one another and compete with one another. And as the mentor of the whole show, you can ignite that in a nice way, and you can take them all the way through it. So I see this as an enabler, and I see this as something that you need to capitalize on and leverage as much as you can. This can balance the challenge of the cognitive element of the story. It's again very important to understand, and this is kind of a pedagogical insight. The students love to succeed, but they will learn through failure. This is the whole idea, and so it's the balance. And this is why I tell you, by design, they have to fail in the first round. Otherwise, they will not learn. But when you actually give them this motto of, remember, guys, nobody wakes up in the morning. No engineer wakes up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to go to my job and mess up my job. I'm going to actually screw up today. Nobody will do that, right? It's bad systems that defeat good people. So when you put this kind of a comfortable zone, safe space, as they say, they can actually fail happily, and then learn from that failure and end on a positive note after multiple success. It's kind of the dynamics of the thing. But if you just get them to do it good from the first time and get better and better and better, they will learn, of course, that you can get better. But when you actually raise them from a failure up to a successful zone, especially in the context of what we're trying to teach here, it's a different story. And so what we as educators need to really reflect on is this cycle of success and failure, and how can you delicately balance that, draw that without really shooting yourself in the feet, as they say. What else do we have? Students will most likely engage with games as they perceive that to be motivation and satisfactory. This is the general kind of outcome. And I'm known now, especially within the 3rd year students and 4th year students, hey, go and take Dr. Deif's classes. He's the games guy. Right? They like it. They come. They basically, he's not the lean manufacturing guy, but he's the games guy. So this is how they relate to whatever you are trying to teach. And if this is what it takes to get them to learn, then let's do it. No problem at all. I would like to share with you finally something that I'm working on now. So you know Lego, right? So there's something called LSP, Lego Serious Play. I had to go through all this certification process to be a Lego facilitator. And I'm actually using this Lego approach to teach supply chain management, not even just operation management and manufacturing. And it's very challenging because you're trying to really get a lot of abstract concepts to be physically played with, right? And this is why I feel that Lego Serious Play, where you actually add the meaning to the bricks, where you actually get people to build narratives rather than products, is something that's very challenging but meaningful. I did this last year, a couple of classes, and this is my pilot run, basically results, again, in the positive direction. Submitted a journal paper for that. Hopefully it will get some feedback and move on with that. But I'm a hard believer now in games, and there is nothing beyond gaming, right? Whatever, even if you are basically teaching law or teaching sociology or whatever, it's you can game it, right?
Interesting.
And these are a bunch of references, and I think I went 5 minutes above the time mark. I was supposed to be speaking for half an hour, but I'm done. If there's any questions, any comments, anything you'd like to add, I'll be happy to.
And I'm so impressed and inspired by the way you're presenting the idea behind it. So can you ممكن تعمل screen off so that I can see
okay, yes. Let's stop sharing.
أيوة. It's very impressive يا محمد يا أحمد جدا بجد the way you are handling. أنا ما حسيتش إن أنا في manufacturing ولا supply chain. أنا حسيت إن أنا I'm in with the students developing their characters actually. يعني whatever you're doing out of competition and cooperation, the both balancing success and failure, hard tasks and easy tasks, and the idea of blame the system, don't blame the people, to work it out, try to find other strategies, tools, and so it's always good to balance between the flow channel, يعني not feeling bored and not feeling anxious about it's the balance between them. So you're developing humanity in what you're doing. I mean, understanding who we are, our abilities, our successes, how do we learn from our failures to move on. فالفكرة كلها يعني أنا ما حسيتش إن هي حاجة engineering صراحة. أنا حاسة إن هي engineering humanity. فيعني using games to engineer humanity, and كل الtasks يعني حاجة مهمة جدا ال relevance between you as a professor of engineering manufacturing وحاجات supply chain ممكن تبقى صعبة على الدماغ يعني very hard to make it easy, easy environment, relevant environment. وهم الشباب ال 18 19 أو 20 أو اللي هم ال undergrads هيبقوا هم طالعين متربيين من هم عندهم سنتين وثلاثة على الجيمز. فبالنسبة لهم مش relevant دي حياتهم. It's not relevant, it is their life. But teaching the way they live their life is, I guess, the best approach ever. وespecially انت يعني مركز جدا في موضوع ان انت عامل الفكرة بتاعت السيميوليشن اللي هي حتى كمان مش computer based مش computer based, it's real life. ومنها بيتعرفوا على نفسهم and they know their strengths. What can I do and what can I can't do? What I'm really passionate about. يعني الكواليتي كنترول ولا ماليش في الكواليتي كنترول. ابقى ماسك وركر في الاند اوف لاين، انا راضي كده اروح البيت بالبطيخه. يعني يعني انا فين؟ انا مين؟ فهاو happy I become when I know myself و stretching my abilities. انت بتحطهم في حته اللي هي يعني على ليفل الفلو channel ده، او الحته اللي هم بيقدروا يعدوا الكومفورت زون بتاعتهم شويه فيبتدوا يكسبوز themselves. ف what I hear from you البرزنتيشن رائعه والريسيرش بيبر بتاعتك رائعه انا مش محتاجه اقول لك رائعه يعني اكيد انت عارف، بس I'm really impressed. You made it very simple and easy and enjoyable. ان اي حد في اي فيلد مهما كان صعب لو دخل الالمنتس اوف جيميفيكيشن واستعان بقى بقدرات الناس اللي هم اللي بيعملوا فعلا العلم ده. يعني مش اي حد هيقدر يعمل طبعا الجيم اللي هي تبقى هم مبسوطين فيها وبتديفلوب فعلا السوشيال ايموشنال كوجنيتيف سكيلز في الموضوع. فلازم حد بروفيشنالي ديزايننج. انا عارفه دلوقتي في شركات وفي تريننجز بتحصل في الموضوع ده. Do you want to say something about that ولا
يعني حاجتين، انت اشرت حاجتين مهمين جدا. اول حاجه فعلا الهيومن ديفلوبمنت ثرو ذس جيميفيكيشن بروسيس مهم جدا. في الاخر احنا بنحاول نعلم مهندسين، بس هو في الاخر هيبقى انسان وبني ادم، وبالعكس ده المانيفاكتشرنج ده مجال فيه a lot of human interaction. ف there is also the culture element, right? وازاي فعلا in this very يعني بالذات في امريكا مثلا very capitalistic environment بتطلع ناس عايزه تدور المكنه اللي بتطلع فلوس وخلاص. And we tend to amplify this and emphasize this with the very high emphasis on efficiency and division of labor. ده الفيلد اللي انا بدرسه. ف this is my only chance to tell them احنا لسه هنبقى efficient وكل حاجه، هيبقى في نوع من انواع division of labor، بس في الاخر division of labor مش mechanizing of labor. وانت لازم تبقى انسان، لازم تبقى when you are a supervisor. فمثلا السوبرفايزرز قبل الجيم بجمعهم بقول لهم انا عايزكم تبقوا the most nasty supervisor ever. تنزلوا على دماغ الناس وكمان بوش ات وي نيد مور. وبعدين فالطلبه في الفيرست راوند بيرجعوا يقولوا يعني يعني بغض النظر عن الجيم صعب، بس these guys are very يعني intimidating.
annoying.
فهو فالسوبرفايزر يبصوا لي يعني انت اللي عملت فينا كده. اقول لهم now do you see how the work environment can be very stressful, not just the job itself لكن the management style, right? And why should we do this versus مثلا المفروض ان حتى في اللين concepts ان it's kind of a flat hierarchy, it's we are all engaged into this. فالهيومن ديفلوبمنت يعني مهم جدا جدا، وده يعني معنى يعني لو يعني احنا اولى بقى الناس بيه، مش بس بقى من منطلق ان ده هيحسن الاداره. انت في الاخر يعني احنا في الاخر سواء جميعا، يعني انت سواء انت المدير او العامل، انسانيا المنظومه القيميه بتاعتنا اصلا بتقول الى ذلك واكثر من ذلك. دي نقطه. النقطه الثانيه اللي حضرتك اشرت اليها برضو موضوع الجيميفيكيشن ديزاين، زي ما تقولي فعلا هو علم، هو فعلا هات بقى جيم كده ونظبطه ونأيفه يعني اتمنى يعني ما بقاش فيه فكره الفهلوه في الموضوع دوت، لان it can actually blow in your face.
بالظبط.
محتاج فعلا يا اما تبذل مجهود في هذا الاطار فتتعلموا ديزاين يور اون جيمز which would be amazing، او تستعين بقى باللي موجود وتفهم. بس في جميع الاحوال هتبذل انت كايديوكيتور، بما ان احنا بنخاطب الاديوكيتورز يعني في this كونفرنس، لازم هتبذل المجهود بتاع التفكيك والتركيب. يعني انت لازم هتفكفك الجيم فتشوف ايه خصائصه وتشوف ايه اللي يناسبك وتعدل شويه تعيد تركيبه تاني لما يعني يختص باليور ابلكيشن. فعلا النقطتين دي مهمين جدا. شكرا احنا انت اشرت.
الحته كمان اللي هي بتاعت، يعني احنا قلنا الشباب اللي هم دلوقتي في الجامعه هم اوريدي متربيين على الجيمز، فالكواليتي اوف ذا جيم از ريلي امبورتنت، يعني الديزاين والكالرز واللاي اوت. انا مره سالت كم يعني هم التين ايجرز صغيرين 12 13 وانت طالع، ليه قاعدين 24 ساعه على الفورتنايت؟ يعني اللعبه دي كانت مسيطره على عقلهم جدا، والاهالي بيجوا بيشتكوا اولادنا.
بقوا
فكل
دمويين بقوا
ها
عباره عن بقوا دمويين وعباره بانش اوف اساسنز يعني.
ايوه، بس هم ليه مش جديد؟ بيقول لك الجرافيكس تحفه، اللي هي تحفه. فبص البص اللي شددهم ايه، شددهم. فلو انت عملت بقى حاجه عشان تعلمهم حاجه مهمه جدا في بناء بلد، في بناء مصانع، في اداره مصانع، كل ده لو انت بس you're meeting and matching ال expectations اللي عندهم. هم جايين ب expectations. if your game is not according to the level اللي هم بيشوفوه، هتبقى turned off بالنسبه لهم. يبقى ايه ده اللي انت عامله ده؟ it has to go يعني a very good professionals او حد. انا حاولت على فكره ادرس الجيميفيكيشن، دخلت فيها وبعدين قلت طب شويه كده وانا ارجع لها تاني بس حاولت.
يعني it's a very moving field طبعا، والتكنولوجي is just enabling us to do more and more. خلي بالك احنا لسه ما اتكلمناش بقى على يعني I'm currently working مع الاندستري ومع الصناعه في موضوع الميتافيرس، وازاي فعلا ان احنا يعني a project I'm working on now in supply chain management. انا عايز اركب الطلبه مع المنتج، انا عايز اركبه على الشجره من قبل ما تبقى ورق، واركبه مع الورقه وهي ماشيه في المكنه.
نقول كالبولي
فالميتافيرس
بختها بيك يعني،
يعني
كالبولي بختها بيك
الدنيا ماشيه في الاتجاه دوت يعني.
صح.
فالميتافيرس هتاخد الكلام ده كله لمستوى تاني خالص يعني. ف وهتبص علينا كده واحنا كنا بنعمل جيمز بالبيبر وورك، الناس دي كانت فعلا بدائيه جدا. ف it's not just a very nice field, it's actually an ever evolving field. ده فيلد مربوط بالتكنولوجي، والتكنولوجي ملهاش غير اتجاه واحد، التقدم
احنا محتاجينك في مصر
والتغير.
يا احمد، محتاجينك في مصر. كفايه
ان
كده
شاء
على
الله.
الكالبولي بقى طيب اخر حاجه يا احمد، الليجو اللي انت ابتديته دلوقتي it seems very interesting يعني، فممكن تقول لي a little bit more about الحته دي؟
لا، في الجميل جدا الفيلد دوت اسمه LSP ليجو سيريس بلاي. سو اتس ليجو، فالفن موجود والجيميكيشن موجود، بس اتس ا سيريس بلاي. يعني مثلا this is a typical now kind of game that the C-suite for example the top management companies are actually they do in the retreats for example. It's the idea هو ازاي تقدري تعملي abstraction وموديلنج لقيم مجمله. يعني انا عايز اعلم الطلبه مثلا قيمه السستينابيلتي، ممكن اقول لهم بس سستينابيلتي في البيئه وكذا، وممكن بعد ما اعلمهم الكلام ده اقول لهم طب انا عايزك بقى تعمل لي لاندسكيب من الليجو بيوريني ازاي السستينابيلتي دي ممكن تشتغل في محافظه الجيزه. خلاص، فهيبتدي هو مش هيطلع. انا اول ما بحط الليجو قدام الطلبه على طول انت عارفه يعملوا البرج والطياره وده طبيعه الانسان بطبيعه الحال. فاول حاجه فيها ان هي بتخليكي تتكلمي عن الابستراكت مينينجز in a meaning in a embodied way. والجميل بقى فيها كمان ان خلي بالك 80% of your neurons and مربوطه في ايدك. ف you get to think with your mind and your hand. And when you think with your mind and your hand, you tap into things that you know and you don't know that you know. You are tapping into this very black box من المعرفة والتخيلات والتصورات. بتطلع بقى كرياتيفيتي بشكل رهيب جدا. طلبة فانت تشوف مثلا حاجة يعني عمود طالع منه مثلا حاجتين، اقول له ايه ده يا ابني؟ فيقول لك لا اصل ده بقى شوف انت الالوان الاحمر ولا الاخضر ولا مش عارف ايه، معناه ان احنا تدرجنا في مش عارف ايه وكذا، وبعدين اللي طالع يمين دي الحاجات اللي طلعت اوف شوت وبعدين حليناها. فهو بقى this is بقى the third element. They add the meaning to the Lego. It's you who put the meaning into it, and it's you that takes me through your metaphors and through all these kind of examples into your own narrative, and you do it as an individual and then you do it as a team. كل واحد بقى بيبني الايجنت بتاعه وبعدين بيربطوهم ببعض، وكل حاجه ليها معنى. فالسلك المشدود له معنى غير السلك اللي هو عباره عن تشين. الاربع بريكس غير الثلاثه بريكس، اللون ده غير اللون ده، بس who give this meaning it's them. فبتاخديه بقى في مساحه ثانيه خالص، بتشرحي انت الكونسبت تقول لهم طب اعمل لي بقى لاندسكيب بالشكل دوت يعني.
انا شايفه ان الفن راجع، يعني فن في الصناعه. يعني
المهم انا بقى اصلا مش بتاع الحاجات دي، انا راجل بقول لك لايف از نوت، خلي بالك جاي من خلفيه لايف
انت
از
اللي
نوت ديفرنشال
بتحكيه
ايكويشن. انا جاي من الخلفيه دي.
انت جاي من الخلفيه دي، بس in reality what you're saying and what you're doing is
يعني
different.
even me as a professor who was very technical was engaged and actually inspired by that, so you can know the students يعني.
meaningful life, meaningful Lego انا يعني شايفاها the artist Lego designer whatever.
يعني انا حطيت السلايد، كان الطلبه what I showed you this ده عباره عن supply chain project، ازاي بيدخلوا الانترنت اوف ثينجز والبلوك تشين والارتفيشال انتليجنس to improve the agriculture supply chain بتاع عمليه الزراعه بتاعه الفراوله. فعندك 4 5 ليجو سيرابس ما فيهمش لا فراوله ولا حاجه خالص، وكل واحده فيهم ابدع من الثانيه في ازاي هم بينجيجوا التكنولوجي دي in a very digital supply chain of this specific product for example.
ده حاجة رائعة يا أحمد، بجد بجد I'm so يعني inspired actually. يعني
I'm happy that this is relevant to the conference because I don't know what you guys were looking for, بس
لا
maybe
it's
this
very
thing
احنا بنبني
and make us more
احنا
compassionate toward our students يعني.
yes it's very compassionate أصلا way of teaching and dealing with students with different abilities. كل اللي أنت بتعمله أو كل اللي بيتعمل في الجيم ديزاين you're taking care of the social cognitive و emotion، كل الحاجات دي مواضيع احنا بس بنبص حاجات cognitive في المدرسة وحصة مدرسية ولا حصة حاجة بسيطة على السوشيال learning، فأنت immerse them in a life that is full of كل السكيلز دي بتبقى بتتكون يعني، وكمان their strength وفرحانين بنفسهم. واكيد الجيمنج برضو الديزاين بيكون فيه ريورد وموتيفيشن معينه، هيكسب هيحقق، فكل ده it is based with the human brain and mind، يعني بيورك بالريورد شويه. فالدنيا جميله جدا، انا مبسوطه جدا يا
انا
احمد.
سعدت جدا، شكرا للفرصه دي،
يعني
واتمنى يكون ان شاء الله ده
بجد
شيء
علم جميل ينتفع به، وعلم بفن، انا بحب الفن في العلم، ف this is a typical learning fun environment يعني. thank you so much.
my pleasure anytime.
شكرا، السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمه الله وبركاته.